take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home, far across the river. Can you hear freedom calling, calling me to answer? Gonna keep on keeping on. I can feel it in my bones.
Good evening. I'm Mark Hughes with the Vermont Racial Justice Alliance Executive Director, and welcome to Juxtaposition. Tonight's episode, running victory laps in a race that's not over. Issues affecting black folks affecting change. Welcome again to Juxtaposition. Our mission here at the Vermont Racial Justice Alliance is to secure sustainable power, ensure agency, and provide security for American descendants of slavery, while embracing their history and preserving their culture. Welcome again. I'm joined this afternoon by Curtis Davis, the Executive Director of Decarcerate Louisiana, the author of Slave State Evidence of Apartheid in America. I'm also joined, I have the privilege to be joined by Max Parthes, the Acting Director of the Paul Cuffee Abolitionist Center in Sumpter, South Carolina, and I'm as well as the National Campaign Coordinator for the Abolish Slavery National Network, and the host and co-host and executive director of Abolition Today, and Jamilialand and Sam Brown, the co-founders of Antiviolence, Safety, and Accountability Project, that is A.S.A.P, chairs of the California Abolition Act Coalition. Welcome guests. Thank you all for showing up. It's good to see all of you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys coming in next weekend. Last year, Juneteenth was declared a national holiday, but how do we reconcile that with the ongoing efforts in Vermont as well as nationally to abolish slavery? Join us as we navigate a discussion to unpack the truth about the U.S. history with slavery and hear from some of these abolitionists that we have here across the United States on the work that they're doing, as well as the work that we're doing here in Vermont. Here now in 2022, still abolishing slavery. So here we are today. We've got a situation where people are just making stuff up. You hear people telling stories, creating narratives, and there's no substance to it whatsoever. And a lot of times what we find is if you say it enough times, what will happen is people will begin to believe it. I don't know about y'all, but when I look at the news today, that's very easy to understand. And I think we shouldn't be stupefied by the fact that we're sitting in 2020 and 78% of all of America don't even know that there's an exception clause to slavery in the Constitution itself. So Max Parthes, I just wanted to, bounce that one off of you because I know I got that research information from you. Welcome to the program. Where did we get those numbers, and how is that playing out at the national level?
Those numbers come from a poll done by our federal partners, Worth Rises and Bianca Tylik. So they did an in-depth survey and found that it's 18% of the population knows that there's this exception clause. And this was roughly done a year ago. I suspect that now it's probably closer to about 25%.
It's just stupefying to me because I know even I myself just found out about it. But the juxtaposition, if you will, though, is really all about the idea that we are headed into what is now a national holiday. I think we're on slide 2. We're headed for a national holiday, and take a look at this slide as it goes up. This came out of Senator Merkley's office. I think it was last year. And it said, this is what it says. It says, ahead of Juneteenth, Merkley and Williams proposed a constitutional amendment to close the slavery loophole in the 13th Amendment. Indisputably, racist exception permitting slavery as punishment for a crime has fueled systemic racism in the criminal justice system for over 150 years. And the thing that I'm seeing, I don't know about you or y'all out in Louisiana, Curtis, or even over in California, Jamilia, and also Sam. But the thing that really is kind of setting me off is the fact that there's so many people who just have no idea that this is. I mean, how can you be an abolitionist in almost 80% of the people that you're in contact with don't even know about or understand what it is that you do? Sam, and I want to go out to you out there, and Jamilia as well. How have you guys experienced this movement out there? And maybe you can spend some time telling us a little bit about the work that y'all are doing in California.
Okay, peace, Mark. So greetings, everybody. My name is sam.nathaniel.brown. I'm the co-chair of the California Abolition Act Coalition, along with my wife, Jamilia, and also the co-founder of the Antiviolence, Safety, and Accountability Project, along with my wife, Jamilia. So to answer your question about what it has been like out here, many people are surprised. You know, when you talk about the 13th Amendment, it seems like the popular narrative is one in which slavery was abolished in 1865. And so that's what's told in the schools. That's what all of the textbooks purport. And most people believe that. But those textbooks were created by, institutions that are historically rooted in Eurocentric views. So they're not going to tell the truth. No one really tells the truth. When you get to talking about Harvard and Oxford and all them, no one's telling the truth about slavery. So here in California, when we talk to many people who've never been in a carceral setting, most of the time it's like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I didn't know that was still taking place in 2022. How can we be involved? What can we do? Then you have the other side, the other folks who like, give me a break. Slavery doesn't exist. No such thing. It's not happening, because they're not knowledgeable and they're just speaking from a place of what was told to them rather than what they researched and learned. So that's typically the two responses that we get out here in California. And so what we've been doing is seeking to raise as much awareness around this issue as possible to make it the new popular narrative, one that's rooted in truth. Because when you talk about Juneteenth, when you talk about reparations and all of these things, for us, for Jamilia and I, the California Abolition Act Coalition, it's all premature. How are we creating a holiday to celebrate the ending of slavery when we still have slavery to this very day? How are we talking about reparations, when you still have people in need of manumittance? It hasn't occurred yet. And so that's the discussion that we're having here in California, is raising awareness around it, that this travesty does exist, and galvanizing as many people as we can to do the moral and correct thing as a collective.
I've got a slide. I think it's the third slide I have over here. It is the 13th Amendment. So for those who are watching, I just wanted to bring that one up and give folks a chance to see it, because after all, we are talking about an institution that's 157 years old, and nobody got the memo. So just in case you didn't get the memo, those of you who are at home, just in case you didn't get the memo, here's the memo for you. It says neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or a place subject to their jurisdiction. So the thing that we have to look at here is the timeline. So I'm going to take you over to the timeline, maybe 3 slides over there where it says a brief chronology. And let's see if we can get that up in the room there. And it starts with July 8th, 1777 is a date that I wanted to share with folks. And this, again, the hard thing about the work that we're doing, and I'm sure you would agree, Sam, and Curtis, I know out there, is we've got to be abolitionists and instructors at the same time. That's what's going on. That's what's happening. So each one teach one. Everybody come along. So here's the lesson plan for today. It was 1777 when Vermont's Constitution, which was the first constitution in the United States history to permit slavery in any form, to even use the language. It had 3 exception clauses, but this is the relic, this is the dinosaur. This is the first time that a constitution allowed slavery in any form in the United States. So we go on 10 years later, then the Constitution was written. And we know that there was, in the 4th article of the Constitution, there was language of Fugitive Slave Act language and so forth, as well as 3/5, but we won't even get into that. But if you just look down that timeline, 1861, 63, Civil War, then you have the 13th Amendment. See, that right there is a contradiction in and of itself, because what we're getting ready to celebrate is a holiday that says that slavery is over. If it was over in 1863, then why would we need the 13th Amendment in 1865? Why would we need that? Well, the reason why we would need that is because it was only over for certain slave states, which were in the South, and that's where Union soldiers were not occupied. But it was not over in the North, and it was just to win a war. But what we also know is even if it was in 1865, the 13th Amendment never abolished slavery completely. But it goes on. It gets even better from there, because after the Civil War ended and the president was killed as a result of it, what we see is then there's this holiday on Juneteenth, this holiday. But what's residual, what we're not talking about, is still the language that exists in our Constitution, which is 245 years old here in the state of Vermont, as well as the language in the 13th Amendment. And I'm wondering, though, out there in Louisiana, Curtis, is this a phenomenon there as well? Are you experiencing challenges with folks running victory laps in the wrong direction while you're just trying to get around the track?
In the Black community in Louisiana, most people are unaware that slavery has not been abolished. In the white community, I've found through our polling data that most 70% of white people do know that slavery in Louisiana still exists, but they believe that it is a cultural heritage which they deserve. When we talk about these exception clauses, what we have to remember is they were put in place with the specific purpose of marginalizing Black people and keeping Black people in their place after Reconstruction happened. So white people have carried this heritage from their grandfathers, great-grandfathers, their fathers, letting them know that if you can't be better than these people, then who can you be better than? Louisiana is about being better than, and heritage is about hereditary, and it's about race. So white supremacy is what we fight here. And Black people in Louisiana seem to be the only people on the battlefield that doesn't know that there's a war going on.
There is a war going on, and I think that's kind of a great way to say it. I want to just switch over to, like, from a United Nations perspective, because I know you spent some time in the United Nations, and I believe you've been up there doing some work. So I want to stick with you.
I had the pleasure of speaking at the United Nations on police brutality with Fred Hampton Jr., Sandra Bland's family, Tamir Rice's family, and yeah, it was a major opportunity last year.
Now, I've got one of the things that really just drives me up the wall is folks here in the state, in Vermont, and sometimes if somebody says, again, like I said at the top of the show, if somebody says something enough times, then you start to believe it, or you got the dog whistles, you got the classic, all of the gaslighting that's going on, folks creating narratives just because of a fear of a Browning nation, fear that somehow or another they're going to, lose ill-gotten gains or something like that. I know this afternoon I was going to get on a phone call and try to explain to a reporter, why our police chief here said certain things, that implicated, Black folks as being criminals in our community. Here's one thing that I think is important for us as abolitionists, and for us as activists, and you as activists that are watching. This is something to remember to keep us on point. Is they're just trying to get us off our square. All they're trying to do is they're just trying to distract us with that nonsense, and it's kind of working on the other side. And it is really white people's job to go and disrupt some of that nonsense, some of those dog whistles or foghorns, if you will, or that nonsense coming out. We have a difficult enough time just trying to educate trying to advocate and trying to eradicate systemic racism. So if we get off of our squares, and this is something for my brothers and sisters who are on the call as well, we get off our squares, what we don't want to do is get so distracted that we're just chasing that nonsense and we don't have time to do our job, because we're abolishing slavery. That's what we're doing. And the last time that happened, there was a civil war. So this is serious business that we're after here, and we don't want to get distracted and just go talking about why somebody's talking about critical race theory or something about black identity extremists or worse yet some type of affinity groups, and there's some kind of threat. So this is the work that we're doing. I want to go to our Constitution, though, because here in Vermont, I want to turn to our Constitution. If you could bring that constitutional slide up in the control room, the Vermont Constitution and slavery. So this is so important here, at least from our perspective, and this is why we're going to have some folks converging on Vermont. I can't wait until you get here, Curtis. I'm looking forward to seeing you over at Decarcerate. I'm looking forward to seeing Jamilia and Sam coming in. I know Max and Tribal Rain are also coming in as well. But what we're going to be doing is we are going to be building some activities here in Vermont around this whole launch of this Abolish Slavery campaign with the Vermont Racial Justice Alliance, our partners, Vermont Interfaith Action. Abolish Slavery National Network is coming in, and we also have Faith in Action partners. So we're towards the end of this program, what we're going to do is we'll share some of that with you. The Constitution should be in front of you. Just want to bring up, okay, a lot of folks are saying, well, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? I don't understand why. The thing here is what we have a Constitution that says that people in Vermont could be a slave after they've arrived at the age of 21 years, unless they're bound by their own consent, and after arriving to such age or bound by law for payment, debts, damages, fines, costs, or the like. There it is. It's in black and red, or black and white, if you will. It's a Constitution. Slavery is constitutionalized. Now, a lot of folks, what they're asking is so what? And so I want to, go back over to Max. So what, Max? So it's the slavery language is in the Constitution. What's the big deal? It doesn't really have any effect, does it? Max Parthes?
Absolutely, it has all the effect in the world. First of all, we're in violation of international treaties simply by allowing slavery to be legal in any form within our constitutions, whether it be state or federal. That is an international crime, particularly through the Declaration of Human Rights in Article 4, where it says that slavery is abolished in all its forms. It doesn't say, except for America, who can use it as a punishment for a crime. Also, we know that the history of it, when it went from chattel slavery and right after the 13th Amendment turned into convict leasing, we see the results of that today, where we're still suffering from convict leasing. The ACLU is about to release a report on the 15th of this month that's going to go into great detail on how we exploit prison labor, and it's called captive labor is the title of it. So be on the lookout for that. We know that in this country right now, even though Black people only make up 13% of the entire population, we have more Black men in prisons and jails, not even jails, just the prisons. We have more Black men in prisons than the top 5 populated African nations do combined. And they are nearly 100% Black men and women. They have nearly 600 million people in that total population. We don't have but half of that. And we're still more than they are. That's ridiculous. And also, not to mention, from the times of convict leasing until mass incarceration as we see today, those effects have destroyed communities, ruined families, killed many, ruined the futures of our children, and is still doing so today. Right where you're at right now, the last reports that I heard is that even though you only have a very small percentage of Black people in your state, less than 2%, you're being incarcerated at 14-1 per 100,000. Now, how is that even possible unless your communities are completely surrounded and being targeted?
Thanks for that, Max. So what are we doing? So let's take it home. I want to go back out to California and hear from y'all, because one of the things that is important in the work that we do is we got to stay busy. And I want to hear how, what's happening in California out there. What are y'all doing to move the needle?
That's a great question. So aside from reaching out to legislators through our lobbying team, we've also been raising public awareness through outreach to the universities and the schools, and also to the faith-based organizations. And the reason why we're doing this, Mark, is because after assessing history, here in California, no social movements of this magnitude have been successful without engaging and galvanizing colleges and universities and or faith-based institutions. So when we talk about same-sex marriages, when you talk about ending the Vietnam War, even when you talk about passing tough on crime legislation, they always seek to get involved, these institutions, or criminal justice reform, they always engage these institutions. So that's something that we're seeking to do here, is get the youth involved as well as the clergy, those who are spiritual. And we're doing that by letting them know that, first of all, slavery never ended, and this is immoral. And then you all have an opportunity to stand up and be accounted for. It's one thing, for it to happen and you're blind to the fact, you're ignorant of it. But once your awareness has been raised of it, then that's a totally different ball game. And we make it clear that, because some of the people are like, well, why do we care about incarcerated people? They committed crimes. Y'all trying to be nice to them now. You're trying to get them a decent wage or so forth and so on. And the fact of the matter is, we're making it also clear that this is a matter of rehabilitation and public safety, aside from being an issue of morality for all of humanity to take on.
Got it, yeah.
Because as long as involuntary servitude is on the books, then it takes precedence over rehabilitation. It takes precedence over public safety, because you have women and men exiting these prisons, these plantations, less prepared to survive and thrive than they were when they went in.
That's right.
They'll have worked these jobs for year on top of year on top of year. And the only people that are benefiting are the state agencies that contract with the plantations and or the private prison corporations. But the people themselves who are actually doing these jobs are working out with no certification, no money. They're not being allowed to be a factor in the lives of their families. And it defeats the entire purpose for why the public thinks that they're there. In California, and I'll say this and I'll be quiet, the original reason for the penal institution was punishment. It was only within the last decade that they actually changed the penal code to say that the reason for incarceration is rehabilitation. And then they put the word rehabilitation on the end of California Department of Corrections. But originally, it was for punishment. And that has been the spirit of incarceration here for way too long, and it prevents people from going in and coming back out better versions of themselves in large numbers that they could if this was removed from the books. So that's something that we talk a lot about. We talk about the fact that it's a moral issue, it's for all of humanity, it's a public safety issue, and it's an issue for rehabilitation also.
Got it. We're headed towards wrap up, and just wanted to just shout out for ACA 3 moving towards the ballot, a constitutional amendment out in the state of California. So there's a lot of work happening out there. Brother Davis, over to you. You want to just briefly give us an update on what's going on with your work to amend the Constitution in the state of Louisiana?
I appreciate that opportunity. Louisiana is the last stronghold of the Confederacy. We still have major issues with white supremacy that is not hidden. We have Confederate flags all over the state. We have resistance from the sheriffs who used to be the Slave Catchers Patrol Society. So our history is all about slavery, and our population is a service economy. Half of our people are locked up and the other half are watching them. You understand? So what we have to do is change the whole concept of our culture here. And it's a hard fight. And we need the people, not just the people of Vermont, and not just the people of the United States, but we need people internationally to recognize when you visit New Orleans, Louisiana, and you spend your money and you're having fun, know that you're almost in a third world country environment, because Black people have been marginalized to a level that, even though we live in all of this technological advanced society with trillions of dollars worth of revenue streaming through it, our people have been redlined and made to be something almost subhuman based on these laws, and they permeate every other policy in our society. So pay attention to it, because it's not just the prisoners that are affected by these slave exceptions.
Okay, let me take you home.
Now make it to the ballot too, by the way.
Let me take you home, because we got to get out of here, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. I really appreciate y'all piece. We're looking forward to seeing you. If you're looking at that slide deck in the control room, time to break the chains. As we move past the Abolish Slavery Vermont slide, there's a slide I wanted to just get up for everybody. There's time to break the chains. This is join the Juneteenth weekend. So I just wanted to make sure everybody got that. And the next slide after that, and I'm just talking about control room through these slides, there is a 11 to 2 p.m. on Friday. That is coming out. We are lifting this thing off. Folks are coming in from around the United States. We're lifting this thing off. So this is the lift off. There'll be a press conference at 10:30. And what's going to happen there is we'll have a barbecue. There'll be food. There'll be all kind of stuff. And on to the next slide, you'll see that there's a spoken word and poetry. That's going to be pretty tight. It's going to be off the hook. Definitely want folks to get there. We're going to be featuring, I think it's Maximum Impact, which is Tribal Reign, and also Max Parthes. That's going to be very, very tight. That's going to be over at the Richard Kemp Center. The next slide after that, which is green, is talking about Sunday, June 19th. Just don't forget about 7:30 a.m. Virtual prayer, breakfast prayer, and also tabling in the Battery Park. We're out of here. Go to our website, vtracialjusticealliance.org. You can also catch up with us over there on abolishslaveryvt.org, abolishslaveryvt.org. This is real. We are not playing. The legacy of slavery is systemic racism. From the Constitution, it entrenches itself into our statutes, our rules, our institutions, so our penal codes and so forth. So this is real work. It's happening all across the nation. California, Louisiana, Vermont, Oregon, Tennessee, Alabama, 4 other states went on the ballot just this last year, and there'll probably be 13 next year. We're moving to be a state, to be a country where for the first time in history, we will be a nation where slavery does not exist. Finally. Thank you for showing up. Good evening. Peace out.
Peace.
Peace. Right, brothers.